When people imagine the destruction of Rome, they usually picture the same scenes: barbarians storming the gates, legions falling apart, intrigues unfolding in imperial palaces, emperors poisoned or murdered. All of this did happen. But the real collapse usually began long before these events. It started more quietly, more slowly, and in ways that were easy to overlook. Empires often fall not by the sword, but by rotting from within. And throughout history, one of the most dangerous causes of that rot has always been the same: money. Rome was no exception. Rome did not collapse only because of external enemies, nor was it simply the result of bad rulers or corruption. Rome fell because it lost trust in its own money, and this story still feels remarkably familiar today to any society that believes it can manipulate money without serious long-term consequences. Let's first look at Rome's currency. For centuries, the backbone of the Roman economy was the silver denarius. First minted around 211 BC, this coin was nearly pure silver. Roman soldiers were paid with it. Merchants demanded it in trade. Ordinary people stored their savings in it. The denarius was not just a piece of metal. It was a tangible symbol of trust in Rome itself. As long as the empire was strong, its money was strong. As long as people trusted Rome, they trusted its currency. But maintaining a vast empire is extremely expensive. Armies must be fed, borders defended, rebellions crushed, roads, bridges, and aqueducts built. By the 2nd century AD, Rome was beginning to struggle on all fronts: Germanic tribes in the north, the Parthians in the east, unrest within the empire. All of this required money. Tax revenues were no longer enough to carry the burden. Raising taxes further would have angered the population and increased the risk of rebellion. Instead, emperors chose what seemed like an easier path: hollowing out the currency. The denarius looked the same, but the amount of silver inside it was gradually reduced. This was an old trick used many times throughout history. The numbers speak clearly. Under Augustus, the denarius was about 95% silver. By the early 3rd century under Caracalla, that figure had fallen to around 50%. A few decades later, during the reign of Gallienus, it dropped below 5%. What had once been almost pure silver had become little more than a bronze coin coated with a thin layer of silver. People noticed. The color of the coins changed, their weight changed, the way they felt in the hand changed. And then the inevitable followed. Prices began to rise. The money no longer represented real value. Grain that once cost a single denarius soon cost dozens. This was not an abstract example of inflation from economics textbooks. It was something people experienced directly in markets, homes, and fields. Soldiers complained that their wages were no longer enough and demanded higher pay. Merchants refused to accept the debased coins and demanded gold or barter instead. Ordinary people, no longer trusting the currency, turned to direct exchange of goods. The economy slowly began to move backward. As trust declined, the state minted even more money, and the more it minted, the less trust remained. A classic vicious cycle had taken hold. This process spiraled out of control during what is known as the crisis of the 3rd century. Between AD 235 and 284, Rome endured nearly 50 years of chaos. Invasions, plagues, civil wars. Emperors rose to power only to be killed months later. But beneath all this political turmoil was a quiet, fundamental problem. Money no longer worked. Taxes were demanded in coins that constantly lost value. Farmers abandoned their land, saying, "I'll never be able to repay this anyway." Trade networks fractured. the state no longer knew what to do. It tried to impose price controls, it forced people into labor, but none of these measures addressed the root of the problem. As a last resort, Emperor Diocletian issued a decree in AD 301 that froze prices. The prices of thousands of goods and services, from grain to labor, were fixed by law. Those who violated the rules faced death. But when money itself is worthless, fixing prices on paper achieves nothing. Black markets grew. Official trade ground to a halt. People learned a harsh truth. Laws cannot save a currency that has lost its value. Eventually, Rome was forced to abandon the denarius altogether. Constantine introduced the solidus, a coin made of pure gold. It was more reliable and remained in use for centuries in the Eastern Roman Empire. But for the Western Roman Empire, it was already too late. The economic foundation had been hollowed out. Armies could no longer be supported. Trade had collapsed. Trust was gone. Rome's fall was not a sudden catastrophe, but a long process of unraveling, and money stood at the center of it. So, what does this story tell us today? Something very simple. When money collapses, states collapse with it. Rome believed it could deceive its people by issuing coins that looked the same but were worth less. Today, governments do the same thing in different ways by printing money, expanding debt, and relying on inflation. The result is always the same. Ordinary people pay the price. Savings erode. Trust disappears. This is not a story unique to Rome. The same thing happened in Weimar Germany. It happened in Zimbabwe. And today a similar process is unfolding more slowly, but on a much larger scale. When the United States abandoned the gold standard in 1971, money became entirely trust-based. Since then, debt has grown, the money supply has expanded, and purchasing power has quietly declined. The currency looks the same, but it is no longer as full as it once was. What makes the situation especially dangerous today is that it is global. Everyone is inside the same system. Everyone relies on similar forms of money, and history tells us that such systems can appear stable for a long time, until at some point trust collapses rapidly. For individuals, the lessons are clear. Inflation is not an accident. Real wealth is not found in paper or numbers on a screen, and no system lasts forever. Romans could not imagine this happening to them. Germans could not imagine it. Zimbabweans could not imagine it, yet all of them lived through it. Rome's story reminds us of one simple truth. When trust in money disappears, society begins to unravel. Trade breaks down. Contracts lose meaning. State authority weakens. By the time barbarians reach the gates, the collapse has already happened. The real destruction began much earlier, inside the treasury. History does not repeat itself exactly, but if you fail to understand it, its consequences will still catch up with you. Rome's currency crisis is not just a story from the past. It is something we are still living with today. Thank you for watching.